We're diving deep, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be trying to find the next Trey McBride. We're going to be trying to find the next Karen Williams, even though I was not able to find this Karen Williams. But nonetheless, I want to start it off with the shallower formats. I understand that the majority of people, and I mean 90% of people, are playing in Dynasty leagues where you roster 35 players plus if you include the tax squad. At least that's all the leagues I play in, but I've came across a few of y'all that are in, for whatever reason, like a redraft league that turned Dynasty. And there, I don't want to be bringing up names like Michael Mayer, where Mayer definitely flashed as a rookie. I do want to remind y'all that going into last year's NFL draft, all the way up until about a month before the season, Michael Mayer was being valued as the tight end 1. It wasn't until about that month before the year where Dalton Kincaid ended up leapfrogging him as that tight end 1 pick. But nonetheless, he flashes as a rookie, 304 receiving yards, goes out there, averages about 21 receiving yards per game. And if you're going to be looking at the underlying statistics that we have from his rookie year, from the road of his screener, he does comp historically to rookies like Tyler Kraft, another player we'll talk about in just one second, Isaiah Likely, Chig, Irv Smith, Dawson Knox, David Njoku, Clive Walford. Really, the only hope is he does turn into David Njoku, which is unlikely based off how good of a prospect Njoku was coming out of Miami. But nonetheless, obviously, if we're talking about these guys at the bottom end of our teams, we are more so going to be looking at a bunch of unlikely shots. And with Michael Mayer, maybe can have a season like Dawson Knox where he gets some lucky touchdown volatility. Going over to another player, this will be for deeper Dynasty leagues as well. I know I actually had a Dynasty league or two where Trey Tucker was not rostered. Now I'm assuming he's going to be rostered after everybody saw him score the multiple touchdowns against the Chargers. Here, this was a compensatory pick in the third round of this year's NFL draft coming out of Cincinnati. Playing for the Raiders, he flashes as a rookie. Reality, not a great prospect. Reality, most likely turns to nothing and is just a roster clogger. But if you're playing in a Dynasty league where you have 5, 10 taxi squad spots, where you're able to roster first and second year players, wouldn't mind at all picking them up and throwing them on the taxi. Now, the one thing is, if you're looking at the wide receivers that you have for the Raiders, I mean, right now you have Adams under contract for 2024. He's $40 million guaranteed. He will be with this team or maybe traded, but he will be on a roster nonetheless. And then Myers, that has about $6 million guaranteed. They could save about $7 million for moving on from Jacoby Myers, but based off how good Myers been this year, I'd imagine that they're keeping both guys. So yeah, I mean, interesting spot. I definitely think that they're worth roster slots. I would say I would way rather roster a couple rookie wide receivers like Josh Downs, Marvin Mims over Trey Tucker. These are going to be guys more so for your shallow leagues. Looking at Downs, this is a wide receiver that had 84 targets through 14 games, 631 receiving yards, multiple receiving touchdowns, averaging 45 yards per game. Before the NFL draft, I love the Josh Downs profile. My only hesitation with Downs is this is a wide receiver that was extremely small coming out of school. As a prospect, however, the production profile was insane. He still goes in the middle of the third round to the Indianapolis Colts in this year's draft. If you go over and look at the Michael Pittman contract, Michael Pittman does not have a signed deal for 2024. Now, I'm going to assume that Michael Pittman will be back as an Indianapolis Colt. I mean, they have Anthony Richardson on the rookie contract. They have money where they can go out there and they can sign him. And we've seen time and time again, I mean, going back to that Christian Kirk contract, that if you show anything at the position, you are going to get a back load of cash if you're a receiver. Now, if we're looking at the comps that you have from Josh Downs, you are looking at rookie wide receivers such as Christian Kirk, which is, I want to say, almost the best case scenario. Is outside of that, you have Kadarius Toney, Corey Coleman, Aaron Dobson, Braylon Edwards, Darrell Jackson, and Calvin Johnson. Don't look at Calvin Johnson. Does not comp that way at all. I think you're really hoping that Josh Downs does turn into Christian Kirk here, even if the majority of the instances, he's probably not going to be anything. And then Marvin Mims will be something that we need to bring up as well. Marvin Mims flashed. The issue that you're looking at with Mims is he really didn't continue to expand his role as the season went on. He kind of just faded out into the background. Now, a good thing with Marvin Mims, however, is if you're going to go through and look at what you have when it comes to the wide receiver contracts in Denver. Right now, you have Jerry Jeudy under contract for 2024, but that's pretty much it as they just pick up his fifth-year option. Courtland Sutton, they could save $10 million for moving on from him in 2024. I'd imagine they keep Sutton there, but neither wide receiver is guaranteed to be the long-term option for 2025 and beyond. If you're looking at Marvin Mims, not great in terms of his comps. You had Dante Ridgeway, Randall Cobb, Ruben Randall, Deontay Burnett, Mecole Hardman. I think the most likely outcome for Marvin Mims Jr. ends up being someone like McCole Hardman Jr., where he's a speedy guy, gets drafted in the second round, kind of flashes every once in a while, has a big game, maybe good for best ball, but you're never really consistently starting him in Dynasty or a shallow redraft format. But maybe you can hope that he turns into someone like Randall Cobb with a little more juice. Now, the last guy that I would say you're looking at from a shallow perspective will be Jonathan Mingo. Jonathan Mingo, another guy that would have been drafted in the second round of your rookie draft this past year, gets drafted in the second round of the NFL draft from the Carolina Panthers. He was a must-avoid guy for us. Horrendous production profile at Ole Miss. But nonetheless, goes out there year one. He does command some kind of volume and increases his role as the season goes on, but has 377 receiving yards through 12 games played. If you're looking at his comps, he has like Corey Davis, Tajee Sharp, Ace Sanders, Louis Murphy, Bryant Johnson. Really, the hope is he turns into Corey Davis. Similar frames for both wide receivers as well. If you're looking at the contract situations, Adam Thielen, I don't know. I mean, they could save $3 million for moving on from Adam Thielen. I'm assuming they're just going to go ahead and they're going to keep him. DJ Chark, not under contract in 2024. So Jonathan Mingo will be that one-for-one replacement. But now let's go over and look at some deeper options here for your leagues. Actually, we'll do one more shallow option. Tucker Kraft, just in case you're in that shallow format. I mean, goes out there, somewhat flashes as a rookie. It's a situation where if you see anything from a rookie tight end, you can be excited. The guys he comps to, someone like Dallas Goedert, does stand out. Like if you look at Jonathan Mingo in the FlockFantasy.com community rankings, right now he's at 161. He's in the same range as like Gardner Minshew, Antonio Gibson, J.K. Dobbins, Michael Thomas, Tank Bigsby, Dalvin Cook. I mean, I probably would just prefer Jonathan Mingo in that range. And of course, if y'all ever wanted to go check out the FlockFantasy.com community rankings, you can find those completely for free on FlockFantasy.com. Also, my Dynasty rankings are there. Mine are going to be behind a paywall. We're also going to have some other stuff behind paywalls, but a lot of free stuff you can play around with over there. And if you wanted to check out those rankings for free or get any of our premium posts, you can find a link to FlockFantasy.com in the description or the comment section. Promo code FLOCK will get you 30% off any subscription. Plus, yours truly will break down your fantasy football team with a podcast. But now going over to the Giants here, we have Wan'Dale Robinson and Jalin Hyatt. I'm assuming Jalin Hyatt's already rostered in the league. We've already talked about Hyatt a bit as well. So I more so want to focus in on Wan'Dale Robinson, who currently is at 190 in the FlockFantasy.com community rankings. Nobody's excited about Wan'Dale. Not going to blame you for it. But Wan'Dale's a wide receiver that did flash through 6 games as a rookie in 2022. Now, he did tear his ACL. I mean, really, people were not expecting him playing at all coming into 2023 here. I mean, it took him a little bit of time to get going in training camp, but he started off the season, didn't really have to start on the PUP, and he did average 31 receiving yards per game, which is a little bit more than what he was being priced in for from a dynasty and a best ball perspective. Now, going forward with Wan'Dale, are we going to sit here and say he's great? No, of course, I can't sit here and say he's going to be a top 24 guy, but what you can look at is you can look at the situation that you have for the New York Giants this next season. With the Giants, right now for 2024, the wide receivers they have under contract will be Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale, Jalin Hyatt, and a player I've never heard of. And if you're looking at Darius Slayton, this is a wide receiver that has about $1.5 million in the dead cap and about $7.5 million with an actual cap it. So they could save $6 million from moving on from Darius Slayton if they really wanted to. Now, it's not necessarily something I think that you pencil him in for sure to do. Maybe they decide to go out there and save that money. But nonetheless, really, Jalin Hyatt and Wan'Dale are going to be the only guys that are currently slated to be playing for this team next year. Now, let's go over and let's look at Hendon Hooker, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, the reason we did not rank him aggressively in our Dynasty rankings last year is just because you kind of see the writing on the wall with a lot of these players that you know aren't going to do anything year one, and it's kind of just better to let someone else roster on them, and then as their value decreases, then we pick them up for free the next season. I'd imagine if you get into a Dynasty startup right now, you may actually be able to get Hendon Hooker in the very last rounds. I don't even know if he's in the FlockFantasy.com community rankings, and with this quarterback, we can safely assume that, yes, you are going to have Jared Goff as the starting quarterback next year. That is the most likely outcome. Is that a guarantee? Probably not, right? There is an outside chance that Jared Goff ends up going somewhere else. But we can assume it's Jared Goff over Hendon Hooker. I don't want to act like, oh, Goff, they can save $30 million. No, it's Jared Goff But with Hooker, he does look like he is an injury away from making a difference. And why I want to highlight him is this is a quarterback that if he were to step into a situation, you could actually start him in fantasy. The reason being is he is attached to a team with one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, with one of the best supporting cast in the NFL, and most importantly, Hooker did demonstrate rushing upside throughout his entire time in college. Tennessee, his final 2 seasons, he had 620 and 430 rushing yards. He had a total of 2,000 rushing yards in his final 4 seasons in college. He had 24 rushing touchdowns in his final 4 seasons in college. They did select him inside the top 100 picks of the NFL draft, inside the top 70 picks of the NFL draft this past season. So he's worth a roster spot. I'm not saying that they're going to save the $26 million and move on from Goff next year to go to Hooker. Probably not, but he is going to be an injury away from making a difference. Now, our next guy will be Isaiah Spiller. Now, with Isaiah Spiller, I was not a fan of him 2 years ago in the draft just because you were looking at a running back that was slow and small, and we had never seen a running back test out to be both slow and small at the NFL Combine and be productive in fantasy. It literally never happened before. And then we saw Kyren Williams, and then we learned that anything is possible. But nonetheless, if you are looking at Spiller, seems like he is going to be getting more and more work down the stretch in 2023. That's not necessarily why I'd be excited. The reason that I would be excited is the contract situation for these other running backs. Austin Eckler currently has no deal in 2024. None. Joshua Kelly, no deal in 2024. None. Isaiah Spiller looks to be the only guy, so maybe you could go through and maybe you could roll with Isaiah Spiller. Now, Cedric Tillman will be another player that we can look at. With Tillman, didn't love him as a prospect. He flashed a bit as a rookie here. I mean, this was a player that was selected inside the top 100 picks of the NFL draft. It's a team that maybe can be a little bit better next year if you get Deshaun Watson back in. But I don't know. Amari is going to be penciled in to be a spot here. Well, we'll go to our next guy, Brenton Strange. Don't know how excited we can be about this player either. We're just kind of going through and looking at anything we can find. With Strange, this is a tight end that out Penn State wasn't a big pass catcher. I mean, obviously, you can make an argument that he's more so being involved as a run blocker. Didn't really do anything at all this season. Rookie tight ends typically don't, but he was selected in the 2nd round. Evan Ingram is going to be under contract essentially all the way through 2024 at the minimum, however. Then Luke Schoonmaker is another guy that was selected in the 2nd round of this year's NFL draft, where he didn't really do much, flashed with a couple touchdowns. Jake Ferguson is under contract in 2024 and 2025, but they did just select Schoonmaker in the 2nd round. The one thing I will say is he's 25 years old, so super tough to see him being great. And then Michael Wilson, another player that I do want to give a shout out to. Michael Wilson actually did flash. He had 435 receiving yards as a rookie. Definitely better than a lot of these other names that we talked about. I do want to point out, however, that he was a 23-year-old rookie. Typically, we need to be discounting this production. But Hollywood Brown is playing the last year of his deal in 2023. Hollywood Brown is not under contract in 2024. So you don't know which direction things are going to go in from here. And Rondale Moore has one more year left on his deal in 2024, but wouldn't be super surprised to see if Rondale just kind of faded out to be absolutely nothing, as he already has. But I do want to reiterate, the majority of these guys will be nothing. These are going to be players that if you are looking at rostering a few options at the very back end of your team, they're names that are worth looking at. Someone like Wan'Dale would obviously be more for a dynasty league where you're rostering 30 guys. Someone like Mingo obviously be for those shallow dynasty casual players. If you're in a real dynasty league, you never consider cutting Mingo. But I think that's all I have for you. Really hope that we were able to help you out here. And if not, hope that I'm able to help you out over on flogfantasy.com. Have a ton of free tools that we've already launched over there for y'all, including that Dynasty trade calculator, including those community rankings, and a lot more coming soon. So if you want to check out any of that stuff for free, just go to flogfantasy.com anytime you want. Links in the description or the comment section. And also, if you want to get yours truly to break down your Dynasty fantasy football team in a podcast, or if you want to get access to all my Dynasty rankings and all the Dynasty rankings of your favorite creators, you can find that on flogfantasy.com. And promo code FLOG will get 30% off any subscription and yours truly to break down your Dynasty team with the podcast. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really hope that you have a great day, and hope that we get to see you out with the video sometime soon.